Welcome to Reading for Idiots and the inaugural episode of Literary Beeves. Literary Beeves, a series inspired by the Kendrick Lamar and Drake feud, which, if you think about it, is fucking wild. I just want to take a quick tangent to appreciate how utterly unprecedented this was, because for 2 weekends in a row, literally the whole of the screen viewing world, which has to be billions, a significant proportion of every human alive on the earth, sang along to that bit in the song.
Trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor.
That bit in the song where Kendrick is calling Drake a first at the Grammys, and they all sang along as he was accepting the Grammy, wearing a Canadian tuxedo. Drake is a Canadian, by the way. And then a week later at the Super Bowl, where Serena Williams does that gangster trip dance thing, whatever it's called, and everybody is singing along to that
A minor.
bit, calling Drake
Certified lover boy, certified.
billions of people. I mean, Christ, that's a burn. And just like how, a song like Strange Fruit, it's basically part of the Great American Songbook, right? It's a song about the horrors of slavery, and it's been covered by like Billie Holiday, Nina Simone, Jeff Buckley, even Annie Lennox, And it's a song that everyone covers once in a while to remember a part of American history. And I reckon, and I really do reckon, in about 70 to 100 years' time, artists will want to cover that song, that Kendrick Lamar song, Not Like Us, because that song will come to represent a time when there was massive wealth inequality and the mega ultra rich thought that they could get away with anything, including fucking
A minor.
Drake is the guy, folks. He will be remembered. If he isn't already, he will be associated with the cultural memory of this time. But whether it's true or not, because remember, Guy Fawkes was just a tag-along fool guy, okay? Drake will be remembered, whether it's true or not, if he isn't already, as the symbol of everything that is fucked up with this point in time. That is how hard Kendrick burnt him. Okay, tangent over. In a similar vein, there have been tons of beeves, which is the correct plural for beef, by the way. There have been tons of beeves in the literary world, and surprise, surprise, not a few of them involve Ernest Hemingway. What a legend. And sometimes they are just as wild as K-Dot versus Drake, especially when considered in their own context. However, when they're not all-out flame wars, they are just hilariously petty. This episode, the inaugural episode of Literary Beeves, Literary Beeves, features two of the best poets there ever was. Lord Byron and Robert Southey. This is Poets Gone Wild.
Like, share, subscribe.
So, literary beeves aren't always polite disagreements which you would be forgiven for believing that they are. This is very clumsily put. They're not, "Do you bite your thumb at me, sir?"
Do you bite your thumb at us, sir?
"I do, sir. I do bite my thumb at you, sir."
I do bite my thumb, sir!
Sometimes they can be all-out bloodbaths, metaphorically speaking, of course. And in the history of writers hating each other's guts, very few battles have been as deliciously vicious as the one between Lord Byron and Robert Southey. In one corner, we have Lord Byron, scandalous, aristocratic, carrying the flag of the Romantic era, playboy, poet, menace to the institution he hails from. And in the other corner, we got Robert Southey, who is pro-establishment and a self-righteous windbag who became somehow the Poet Laureate of England, despite being the human poetical equivalent of a weak and lukewarm cup of tea. And already, if history is indeed written by the victors, you can probably imagine who won this one exactly by how they are remembered. I mean, look, these two didn't just hate each other. They utterly despised each other. And the best part about it is that they expressed it all in poetry. Their caustic vitriol just spills from the thousands of pages that they wrote. This is a beef born of rhyming couplets, sung in sonnets, and remembered through rhymes. Truly, one of the pettiest feuds of all time. The rock star versus the bootlicker. To understand why these two truly hated each other, we gotta know first who the hell they were. So Robert Southey was a poet who started off with some radical ideas and, he was sticking it up the man's proverbial rectum, but then, in a plot twist that would make even E.L. James groan, he sold out hard. And by the time Robert Southey became Poet Laureate in 1813, he was writing these cringe-core odes to King George III and offering up his own rectum to the government of Great Britain. Meanwhile, Lord George Gordon Byron was literally, pun intended, the blueprint for your brooding bad boy. And he was, by the age of 20, already a rock star, dropping hits like Don Juan and Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, and he made every aristocrat clutch at their precious little pearls. And it's precisely because his poems were filled with this one thing that made the jaws of these hoity-toity Victorian moralists drop: sexual tension. Also, Byron was just a walking scandal. I mean, affairs, dozens. Debts, mountains. And incest, allegedly. I mean, apparently, enough people knew about him and his half-sister to make dinner parties very awkward. So definitely problematic, but admittedly entertaining as hell. And who abhorred Byron's existence totally? You guessed it. It's Robert Southey. Holier than thou, Robert Southey, Poet Laureate who thought that poetry should be about preaching morals and not, God forbid, about fun. So it's 1817 and the first shots have already been fired. And by this point, Southey has already prolapsed into a government mouthpiece and he's attacking the younger generation of poets, specifically Byron, Percy B. Shelley, and Leigh Hunt, calling them
Immoral and godless degenerates!
who are corrupting the youth, which, to be fair, is not entirely not true, but just Southey saying it just kind of smacks of a bitter resentment. And Byron, naturally, is just all like,
Brother, you want a war? Let's bathe in blood.
And then, in 1821, Southey just escalates the hateful rhetoric by saying that Byron and his pals belong to
a satanic school of poetry!
Yes, actually, he plays the blasphemy card, which back then is kind of like playing the race card, right? But he doesn't just accuse them of blasphemy. He says that their poetry is filled with sin and dangerous and poisonous ideas, which again is not totally wrong. But calling Byron and his pals Satanists is just a tad dramatic, don't you think? Especially considering that we are in Victorian England. This is a serious accusation. King George III is not just head of state, he is the head of the Church of England. This accusation is not just heresy, sacrilegious, it is fucking treason. Lord Byron, though, doesn't just take it on all fours as Southey does. He burns him to the ground. Byron releases the vision of judgment, which isn't just a parody of Southey's poetry. It is a straight up obliteration. He roasts Southey's writing as lifeless and boring, and he calls him a bootlicker. Publicly published, by the way, and he also literally rewrites his own version of Southey's poems just to make fun of them. He calls Southey a hireling, a traitor, a scribbling fop, and he describes his poetry as dull as dishwater. But the thing is, like, Southey tries to hit back, but it's kind of embarrassing because he was literally just verbally, poetically curb-stomped, right? He writes a series of letters in which he calls Byron's poetry
vulgar, harmful to society.
Nothing new, basically. Nothing original either, because he then doubles down on the whole school of Satan shtick, hoping that this time some shit will stick. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Because while Byron is now remembered as one of the greatest poets England has ever produced, who the fuck is Southey? He's pretty much only remembered because of his feud with Byron. Hands down, Byron won. In life still, kinda. He was adored, hated, envied. He was just talked about. He was loved. And most importantly, Byron was read. Southey, on the other hand, became just another government poet with an inferiority complex. And in the end, Byron had the last laugh, mostly because he died young and didn't have to witness Southey growing old. But who do you think won? Start some beeves down below, and remember, Southey was the Poet Laureate. He had the titles, but Byron has cultural immortality. Byron's poetry is still read, it's still adored, it's still quoted by tons of people around the world, whereas Southey is only remembered as the petty little prick that Byron destroyed. Kind of like how Drake will be remembered as the pretty little prick Kendrick destroyed. That's it, guys. Episode 1, Literary Beeves. Episode 1 of Literary Beeves. Subscribe for more Literary Beeves. Hit that like button. Share this video with your boss. Share it with your arch enemy. And remember, don't ever start a feud with a poet because they will reduce your entire existence into a punchline. Like,
Trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor.
Like, share, subscribe.